The YNW Melly murder trial got intense today. 2 medical examiners testify about the autopsies of the deceased victims, Sack Chaser and Juvy. These details are pretty intense later on in this video, so prepare yourself. Hit subscribe right now. Thanks for supporting all these videos. Let's get right into it. First look at Melly today. Looks like he's praying. The first thing today is Melly's lawyer is going to come up and cross-examine the undercover detective for a little bit.
Opinion in a case regarding the rapper Drake.
Oh boy, bringing up Drake.
Yeah.
And your opinion was that he was not a gang member.
Correct.
The reference to violence in songs by rappers is not unique to Melly,
No.
right? And it doesn't necessarily mean you're a gang, right?
No, anyone can commit an act of violence.
Okay. Ms. Bradley asked whether or not you were familiar with a rapper named Kevin Gates.
Right.
And in that video, there were Kevin Gates lyrics being recited.
Believe so.
Just brainstorming in the game forming these thoughts and ideas. No regrets for the shit I did. That also mean for the N-words I killed. 4:30 a.m. Never say when. I love how the judge always tells the jury to not remember some of these things, but then it's like natural to remember so many things they see.
Yes.
No regrets for the shit I did. It also means for the ends I killed. 4:30 a.m.
No regrets for the shit I did. That also means for the yeah. 4:30 a.m. Never say when.
Oh, so that's the video the prosecution has been saying that Melly kind of confessed to the murders in, because he's talking about the murders at 4:30 in the morning or whatever. But Melly was probably just sending this video to Kevin Gates because it's Kevin Gates lyrics. That's what his attorney is reaching for right now.
It's identical, except for the gesture in place of the word kill.
Correct.
Okay.
So he's pushing that it's not a confession, it's just lyrics of another song.
That there are no responses to any of these messages, right?
Right.
Okay. 10-6 at 12:05. He reiterates. Me, you, him, and Jay Green. No response?
No.
When you free?
No.
No. To stay in tune is to communicate, bro. If you feel like it's too much, you can line up elsewhere, but you won't get the perks and respect you get now. Any response?
No. Okay. See, look, I have.
Okay. While the state had you up here when you were interpreting messages, you seemed to have a level of certainty in all your assessments. Now you're a little bit equivocating. Just saying. Okay.
Melly's lawyer getting a little frustrated that he's being more vague with him than he was with the prosecution. Objection is sustained. Yo, bro, do you fuck with Ponderondo? He disrespecting the hood.
When? And then Melly responds, nah, me and Bruh fought. Well, I fought young boy.
We saw these messages yesterday, but his lawyer's trying to pick it apart a little bit and make this expert look bad.
I don't do no drugs, hurt. What does he say right after that?
Bring some to my Crips.
His who's?
Crips.
Not his bloods? Okay. He can't. He's not even supposed to use a C there, right?
Right.
Okay. And not only does he use the C, he refers to his buddies as his Crips. Did that happen? Yes or no?
He did.
Okay.
A risky text. Holy shit, why did Melly send that? I don't know how that works, but damn.
Did I? I tried to get him straight and I messed it right back up.
Melly's lawyer whispered, I tried to get him straight, but I messed it up or something like that.
I know who the founder is, bud. I'm saying you ain't send it. Julius B. Sonny. See that?
See it.
He's saying the founder is Julius B. Sonny, right?
Correct. Okay, but you know Julius B. Sonny is not a person, right?
He doesn't even know what he's talking about. He's saying the founder is somebody who's not even a person.
Right.
Okay.
So Melly's lawyer's trying to show that he didn't respond a lot and they were mad at him about communicating and that he was oblivious to some of the blood lingo and to some of the blood history. He's trying to separate Melly from that gangster image as much as possible for the jury.
Some of the pictures are external and some are internal, and whether or not you need all photographs.
Where photographs are relevant, the trial court must determine whether the gruesomeness of the portrayal is so inflammatory as to create an undue prejudice in the minds of the jury and distract them from a fair and impassioned consideration of evidence. Graphic photos are available to illustrate this for the admission of the gruesome photos. Judge, there's no question that the victims in this case died of gunshot wound. Primarily one gunshot wound was fatal on each one. She could determine which shot occurred first in both of the victims, and they were the fatal shot in both of the victims. Therefore, the introduction of all these other photographs are irrelevant, prejudicial, and we would object to them.
Thank you.
So both teams fighting to try to show these graphic photos of the deceased.
But this is the face of the decedent. That's how we identify him. Yeah, so these are the clean photographs of the hands.
How many photographs of the two hands are in that file?
So there's a front and back. So there's one front, one palm to show every piece of each hand to show that there's no injuries.
And there's no injuries on the hands.
That's correct.
We would object to its duplicitous and it has no relevance.
Thank you. That objection is overruled. There's no blood, there's no gruesomeness or anything like that associated with those photographs, counsel. So the objection is overruled.
If you show just the close-up so I can talk about the characteristics of that wound, there's no way for me to show where it is on the body. I can say where it is, but I can't show it. So if you want an orientation shot so you can show where it is, and the closer shot so I can explain the characteristics of the wound.
So this is a big deal because the prosecutor wants to show how gruesome these photos are to the jury, but the lawyers don't want to show that at all. They're like trying to avoid this at all costs because they don't want to scare the jury.
Is the court allowing both of those photographs? She's saying she needs to explain the testimony. Yes, that's the way I understand it.
I believe she said she could explain it on either one of the photographs.
I can explain that it's a laceration on each one in order for everyone involved to be able to see why it's a laceration.
Thank you. Objection notes overruled. Again, these photographs show depict an injury externally. It's not internal. I don't know that they're so gruesome as to inflame the jury.
The organs prove that there was no heartbeat when those shots were inflicted. If anybody is trying to say that one shot was alive when that shot was shot, and the other two were after he passed away sometime later, the only way to show that with the photos is to show you that in the lung, in the heart, where the projectile from the shoulder was retrieved, that there's absolutely no hemorrhage around any of those organs or limbs.
So it looks like the judge is going to let majority of the photos in for the doctor to explain her testimony. So the medical examiner is finally going to testify here.
As an expert in the area of forensic pathology.
I have.
How many times?
Over 100.
She's testified 100 times?
One of the cases, and our fellow Dr. Sauter took the other case.
So she did the autopsy on Sack Chaser.
Would those photographs help explain and illustrate to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury the process and how that is undertaken?
These are photographs that are taken before we do anything to the body, before we move the body, before we clean the body. We take photographs so we can see it as is. And there are projectile fragments in the head. This is dental restorations, later becomes known as an entrance gunshot wound, a defect, a circular defect to the middle of the chest. So this is what we call it's called a headshot. It's our identification shot. It's a picture of the decedent's face.
Oh my god, these pictures are probably so bad in the courtroom right now because these guys got shot in the head, and they're showing the picture of his face right now.
So this is the left hand, it's the palmar surface. So we'll take 3 photographs of each hand, at least 3.
This gunshot wound B, entrance wound is?
So it's in the middle of the chest. So that wound is 19¼ inches, below the top of the head. There's a penetrating gunshot wound. Goes in, doesn't come out. Penetrates, I recover a projectile. Then there's a perforating gunshot wound. It perforates the body. I have an entrance, and I have an exit, and I don't collect a projectile.
How many autopsies have you done in which gunshot wounds have been a cause of death?
Probably 600 or 700.
What a f***ed up job, dude. Look at dead bodies all day. Different type of person right there. Well, this is a big point right here, the stippling of the skin, which shows that the gun was within 3 feet of them.
And for gunshot wounds, we are tasked with trying to determine the range of fire. There is what's called a contact gunshot wound, which means that the muzzle of the gun is up against the target. With an intermediate gunshot wound, if you take your target and your gun and you move away from your target, okay, so you're far enough away now that you're not going to leave a nice ring of soot, you're going to get something that's called stipple. Okay, so the gunpowder coming out of the gun will tattoo the skin. You will get a nice pattern, a spray of stipple on the skin. Those are intermediate gunshot wounds. With indeterminate gunshot wounds, that either means that the muzzle of the gun is far enough away from the target that all the gunpowder falls off before the projectile hits the body. There's something in the way of the skin, between the skin and the weapon, that any evidence of close range firing would be on that clothing. Okay? If you have someone that's shot in the chest, you'd want to look for evidence of close range firing on what they're wearing. Best way to get the distance on a certain person would be to take the exact same gun with the exact same ammunition, a white sheet of paper, right? Until you get far enough away that the distance of your stipple pattern on your paper matches what it was on the skin.
If you don't have a pattern, can you do that recreation?
Cannot.
When Melly's team comes up and cross-examines this, it's going to be crazy.
So when you're looking at gunshot wounds, what that tells you is that the projectile is coming from that side of the body. Okay, so when a projectile hits a target skin straight on, you'll get what's called a circumferential rim of abrasion, which means the rim of abrasion goes all the way around the circle. If it enters from the right side of the body at an angle, and then the right side of that circular gunshot wound is going to have a marginal abrasion. If it enters from the bottom, that abrasion is going to be along the bottom.
She's actually explaining that very well.
So on the top of his right shoulder is the third entrance gunshot wound. So this is a penetrating, so it has an entrance wound, no exit. And so A is an entrance gunshot wound on the left side of the back of his neck. Position of that entrance wound is about right here.
And you said this was what type of gunshot wound?
This is a perforating gunshot wound.
Dude, on the back of his neck, man.
And where was that exit?
The exit is on the right temporal scalp.
Okay. For the wounds A to E.
It is a fatal wound, yes.
What injuries were associated with the wound tract of A to E?
So that projectile goes through the scalp, the skull, the dura mater, the brain. There is subgaleal, subdural, and subarachnoid hemorrhage, and multiple fractures of the bones of the skull.
Okay. So a lot of medical.
Your scalp, right, your head, the skin that's on your head, when you reflect it back, okay, the underside of that is called the galea. Okay, so if you have hemorrhage in the underside of the skin on your head, that's a subgaleal hemorrhage. A cover on your brain that is called dura mater. Okay, so you have your brain, you have this dura mater, and then your skull. All right, so if I have subdural hemorrhage, sub means underneath, I have blood between the brain and the dura.
I try to say this as much as I can, but my condolences to the families. This is so gruesome.
Membrane that covers the brain, and that is hemorrhage in that space. So there are different spaces within the cranial cavity where blood collects with injury. So hemorrhage means there's bleeding. If you ever had a bruise, that's hemorrhage underneath your skin. Those are the projectile fragments that were collected at the autopsy.
And are they in the same or substantially same condition as when they were collected?
They are.
So, Dr. McDougall, in terms of this particular entrance wound, how can you tell this is the entrance versus site E?
Because it has an abrasion margin, okay, abrasions are usually only associated with entrance wounds. So I called the range of fire on this case indeterminate, okay? There are, indeterminate does not mean distant. Indeterminate means I don't know. So, you could say that might be stipple, that little defect right there. That might be stipple, but that's right around a hair follicle.
Can you make any sort of medical opinion as to range of fire?
I will not, based on one or two, I call them ditzels, say that for sure is intermediate.
In terms of this particular injury, was the individual alive when it was inflicted?
Yes, what that tells me is that there is no circulation to that part of the body when that gunshot wound is inflicted.
Yeah, so the first gunshot wound to the back of the neck that went through his head, obviously he died instantly, and the other two, I believe after that, were not fatal.
And what this is showing you is this is hemorrhage, okay? This is blood, this is bleeding, there is a heartbeat.
There's no way his family's in that courtroom right now. That would be wild.
So he has marijuana, THC, and marijuana metabolite.
And can you give any sort of time frame on the ingestion of those
I
substances?
cannot. The cause of death is multiple gunshot wounds, and the manner of death is homicide. So when gunshot wound B was inflicted, yes, he was dead, and it exited D, so it's one gunshot wound.
Correct. So when wound C was inflicted, was Anthony Williams dead?
Yes.
I wonder how he feels seeing these pictures. These are people he grew up with, right? So if he actually didn't murder these guys, it's actually pretty. But if he did do it, kind of even more. Because he's like, wow, I did that to my friends. Like, this is disturbing. Like, what the is going through this guy's head?
As you can tell, the AC has changed its temperature. We contacted them and supposedly going to come over.
The AC is down in the courtroom. You can't make this shit up. And Florida, too, is going to get steamy in there. So Melly's lawyer is up now, cross-examining. I wonder the strategy they're going to have here.
He weighed 172 pounds.
Yes, sir.
And his hair was 6 inches in length.
Correct.
Braided.
Correct.
The pictures I saw did not show the braids on his hair. Did you cut his hair?
We shaved the hair around the wounds.
Okay. Did you save the hair so that it could be tested to determine if there was any GSR or gunshot residue on it?
We shaved the hair so we can see the characteristics of the wound.
And what did you do with the hair? Did you bag it so that it could be sent to the lab to be examined to determine if there was any GSR or any projectile fragments on it?
I did not.
He's trying to pick it apart a little bit, hinting at them not testing for GSR on the hair.
The clothes are a rather important factor in determining the range of whoever fired the gun that caused the death.
If the entrance wounds are around where there is clothing, they are important to determine range of fire. That's correct.
Okay. And you indicated that one of the wounds was in the chest area.
Correct.
Were you advised at any time that this person was wearing clothes?
Yes.
And Moretti didn't bring the clothes to you to look at? 6 inches of braided hair and the clothes that he was wearing would assist if anyone attempted to do what is known as a trajectory reconstruction, correct?
But you could do a modified gray stain on the clothing to look for gunshot residue.
Okay. And those items would be important, would it not, if someone wanted to attempt to reconstruct how the shooting occurred?
So my job is cause and manner of death. I'm no expert in reconstruction. So in this case, that's the fatal injury because the other two, he was dead when they were.
Did not suffer any pain from those 2 injuries.
He's already dead.
And you indicated that these injuries were indeterminate,
Correct.
which means, in layman terms, simple terms for me to understand, means that you cannot tell how far away or how close the shooter or shooters were
That's correct.
when this occurred.
Yes, sir.
In fact, you don't know if it was 1 shooter, 2 shooters, or more, correct?
That's correct.
It's not really her job. The good thing to point out that she's not sure exactly how many shooters there were, or how far they were exactly to the T.
The scientific way to determine the distance would be, and I think you said it today, take the same gun, correct?
Correct.
Take the same ammunition, correct?
Correct.
And then fire that gun with the same ammunition into a white paper or poster or whatever, wrapping paper, until you could get the same type of stippling pattern on the body, correct?
If you have an intermediate gunshot wound, yes, sir. All 3 of my gunshot wounds are indeterminate.
Okay. Determinate, which means you can't tell the number of shooters or the distance.
Indeterminate means I don't know the range of fire from looking at the gunshot on the body.
Sack Chaser didn't have any stipling on his, back of his neck where he got shot. But apparently Juvy did on his cheek. I'm sure they'll go into that with the next person. I think the next person that comes up did Juvy's autopsy that had, Juvy got shot in the left cheek.
You usually can't tell what shot or what injury occurred first, second, and third.
Correct.
In this case, you could on both
What?
the individual. You did the autopsy.
I can tell you the first shot. I don't know the order of the second and third.
Okay. And the first shot on both of them were the fatal shots.
Because they are already deceased when the other ones are.
Over 3 years later, you indicated you were asked to review the autopsy report of Dr. Saunders, correct?
I was asked to review photographs that were taken at the hospital.
And you realized that there's a mistake that not only Dr. Saunders made, but obviously, with all due respect, you made.
So there is an exit gunshot wound on the inner thigh that I don't have any picture of at the autopsy.
Oh, I saw this in depositions. I've read this lady's deposition over the weekend. I read it all, but it wasn't anything worth a video in my opinion because it was pretty graphic. It's basically what she said now, but in writing. They missed an exit wound on a thigh of Sack Chaser or Juvy. I don't know which one, but they missed a wound, an exit wound. I think they thought it was an entrance wound, but it turned out to be an exit wound. Any defense lawyer in the world is going to pick this apart and try to make them look bad.
We have the right to amend the report.
Of course.
And that's exactly what
Over approximately 3 years later, was not the police department, but the state attorney's office. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
And before you corrected that report, did you make any attempt to exhume the body to verify that injury?
I have a photograph of it. I don't have to exhume the body.
So the answer would be no.
That's correct.
Okay. Are you telling ladies and gentlemen jury that you can make a mistake, that you're human?
I'm human. She's human. We're all human.
So are there processes in place where you can review and go back and catch those mistakes?
There are.
Is that what happened in this case?
That's what happened.
In terms of exhuming a body 3 years later, would there be any benefit to doing that?
If I have a photo document of the injury, I would never put a family through that.
Pretty good testimony for the prosecution to show how disturbing and gruesome of deaths that these guys went through. It's definitely going to sit in the back of a juror's mind for sure, so.
And the objection is it's duplicate?
Yes.
All right, the objection is overruled. It's not a gruesome photograph. It's
Melly's team tried to object to the stippling. That's not gonna happen. Ain't no way. Team's zoned out today. A little sad, I'm gonna be honest. I haven't really seen him smiling today, obviously. It's not really an appropriate day to be doing that. 100th time testifying.
You see a fragment here, another projectile here, and if you move down, there's a too far. There's a minute fragment right there. This is a clean headshot of Mr. Christopher Thomas.
Okay. When you say clean, what does that mean?
This means that after we have documented opening the body bag, we take a series of photos that depict how the body is received. You're seeing a series of abrasions, which means scrapes to the upper and lower lips, right here.
In terms of the purpose of an autopsy, what are you trying to do?
We're trying to document the injuries we find on a body. This is a close-up image of the wound to the left cheek.
And the dark circle around it, what is that?
That's what we call an abrasion margin, and that abrasion margin has been dried, so it looks dark. You also see areas of little dots of abrasions right here, here, all over, and that's called stippling. Because I was informed...
Objection. Hearsay.
That's a quick objection. As soon as she said I was informed.
Defect to the left cheek.
And in terms of what is the wound path of wound A?
So it's going from left to right, front to back, and upwards.
Okay.
Stippling is all these little pinpoint abrasions you see around the wound, even up here, 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 here.
Do you have an opinion as to the distance or range that the firearm would have been?
I can give a range based on a textbook answer, because to get the specific range, you need the type of gun and the same type of ammunition that was used to cause this wound. The injuries start with fractures to the zygomatic bone, which is your cheekbone. It then injures and perforates the dura, which is the covering of the brain. It then caused a subarachnoid hemorrhage, and it caused lacerations to the cerebellum, which is in charge of your posture and coordination. It also caused injuries to the midbrain, to the pons, and the medulla. And those parts of your brain are in charge of your circulation, your heart beating, and your breathing. So the entrance wound would be approximately right here on the cheek. D is the entrance wound to the medial lateral aspect, medial dorsal aspect of the left foot. G shows the entrance wound of the right arm. The heart was not beating at the time that this wound was inflicted. You are looking at the liver with a rod to show that there are defects to the liver. That is a photograph depicting the heart, and the rods are showing 2 defects to the heart.
Were you able to correlate the wounds with the trajectory rods in the back of the seat?
Objection.
Trying to correlate the wounds and the trajectory rods, but the defense isn't going to let that happen. They're going to try to object to that.
That the decedent was slouched over slightly, and they would match to the defects on his back.
Adelstein just told me it wasn't disclosed. He had no knowledge of it.
No, this is all predates the arrest of the defendant. They have copies of all of these images and photographs.
The doctor's going to render an opinion on the trajectory analysis, or how
She's not rendering an opinion on trajectory analysis. She's rendering an opinion on the defects in the body, that they are consistent within the material is consistent.
So Melly seems objecting to this lady talking about any of the trajectory analysis right now, and the judge seems like he's siding with them so far.
That's not totally correct. Dr. McDougall took her out to the scene because this is one of 3 cases in her entire experience that she could determine which injury occurred first. We were put on notice approximately 3.5 to 4 years after this incident, after the autopsy, and after all of it.
So it's clear she is not testifying on trajectory. She is testifying on the defects to the body.
Well, she did kind of testify about the trajectory because she is comparing her results to the trajectory rods.
What does that have to do with matter and cause of death?
Showing that
Listen, man, I don't need any hand stick, all right? Purple shirt, I don't need anything, all right? You, yes, ma'am. I don't need you making hand gestures or anything, all right?
He just yelled at the other lady on the state, purple shirt lady. You can just tell this judge is so over this prosecutor. He really is.
Objection notice overruled. I'll let her testify.
I'm surprised he sided with the prosecutor there.
Are they consistent with the defects in the car?
Objection.
Overruled.
Yes.
Described were either intermediate or indeterminate.
Correct.
Do you know how many shooters were involved in this case?
No.
Do you know the weapon that was used in this case?
No.
You can't place the shooter or shooters when these injuries occurred, correct?
Correct.
Do you know if anyone examined those dreadlocks to determine if there was any stippling, gunpowder, or anything?
No.
Did you examine his clothes?
He came unclothed to our office.
Do you know if any detective or any crime scene investigator collected that evidence?
Not to my knowledge.
Trying to make her look like she's bad at her job.
The guns that were used, correct?
Correct.
You don't know if the clothing was collected and examined,
That's not part of my job.
okay? And you don't know if the hair or the dreadlocks were examined by anybody from either the Miramar Police Department or the Broward Sheriff's Office, correct?
That's correct.
Do you have any evidence to indicate this young man was involved in
Your
this?
Honor.
Stay. This witness excused.
Hold on, Melly's lawyer tried to have a moment right there. Do you have any evidence of this young man? And then he got cut off. But yeah, that's pretty much it for day 9, I believe. Intense details about how gruesome everything was. It's really sad. I feel bad for the families. Rest in peace to these 2 guys. No matter what, they died. So, you know, this is some f***ed up shit. Yeah, if you're new to my channel, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram. I'll keep covering this. Peace out, boys.